I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this. The guy whose wife cheats on him. The guy who becomes the punchline to someone else's joke. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. And my curveball came in the form of finding out my wife of 8 years was having an affair. My name is Daniel, and up until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. A successful career as an architect, a beautiful home in the suburbs of Boston that I had partially designed myself, and what I believed was a rock-solid marriage to my college sweetheart, Elise. We met during our sophomore year at Northeastern. I was the quiet, focused architecture student, and she was the vibrant art history major who somehow noticed me sketching building designs in the campus coffee shop. One conversation led to another, and before long, we were inseparable. After graduation, we built our lives together, supported each other through grad school, first jobs, and the ups and downs of adult life. We got married in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard, surrounded by family and our closest friends. I remember thinking that day that I was the luckiest man alive, and for the next 8 years, I continued to believe that. Looking back now, I can pinpoint when things started to change. About a year ago, Elise got a new job at a prestigious art gallery downtown. It was her dream position: better pay, more creative control, and connections to the art world she had always wanted to be part of. I was thrilled for her. I truly was. "This is going to change everything for us, Danny," she had said, her eyes gleaming with excitement as we celebrated with champagne in our kitchen. "I'll be working with serious artists, planning exhibitions, everything I've always wanted." "You deserve it," I told her, meaning every word. "No one has worked harder than you." For the first few months, things were great. Elise would come home buzzing with stories about the gallery, the artists she was meeting, the pieces she was helping to curate. I loved seeing her so fulfilled, even if it meant she was working later hours and traveling occasionally for art acquisitions. Our time together became more limited. But I chalked it up to the natural adjustment period of a new career trajectory. Then came the subtle shifts. The casual touch that used to be commonplace between us became rare. Our conversations grew shorter, more perfunctory. Date nights that had been sacred to us since college were rescheduled, then canceled altogether. When I brought it up, Elise blamed work stress, and I believed her. I wanted to be the supportive husband, not the guy who complained when his wife was finally getting her professional due. "It's just a busy season," she would say, kissing me quickly before heading to bed early or staying up late on her laptop. "It'll calm down soon." But it didn't calm down. Instead, the distance between us only grew wider. They say intuition is a powerful thing, and mine had been screaming at me for weeks before I found actual evidence. It happened on a rainy Sunday morning. Elise had gone for what she called her weekly inspiration walk, something she'd started doing recently, rain or shine. She said it helped her clear her head and find creative solutions for gallery challenges. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was out. Normally, I wouldn't have looked. I've never been the jealous, snooping type. But the device was charging right next to where I was making coffee, and the name that flashed across the screen caught my attention. Julian, with a small star emoji next to it. Julian was her new boss at the gallery, a name I'd heard increasingly often in her stories. The star was what gave me pause. Elise didn't use emojis with any of her other contacts, not even me. The preview of the message was visible on the lock screen. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. Miss you already." My coffee mug nearly slipped from my hand. I stood frozen, staring at those words until the screen went dark again. When I heard Elise's key in the front door 20 minutes later, I had already put the phone back exactly where she'd left it, my hands trembling and mind racing. "Hey," she called cheerfully, shaking rain from her jacket in the entryway. "It's really coming down out there." "Good walk?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm raging inside me. "The best," she said, not quite meeting my eyes as she headed upstairs to shower. I spent the next week in a state of numb surveillance, watching Elise for signs, listening for clues. She kept mentioning late meetings, weekend exhibition preparations, texts and calls that she would take in another room. The way she guarded her phone had become obvious now that I was paying attention. One night, when she said she had to attend a gallery dinner with potential donors, I decided to follow her. I'm not proud of this moment. Following your spouse like a private investigator is nobody's proudest hour, but I had to know. I had to see with my own eyes what my heart already understood to be true. I watched from my car as she entered not a restaurant, but the lobby of an upscale apartment building downtown. Through the glass front, I could see her embrace a tall man with stylish glasses and an expensive-looking blazer. Julian. The way she melted into his arms, the familiarity and intimacy of their kiss, it wasn't new. This had been going on for some time. That night, I sat in our dimly lit living room until 11:30 p.m. when Elise finally came home. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly disheveled despite obvious attempts to fix it before entering the house. "How was the donor dinner?" I asked quietly from my armchair in the corner. She jumped slightly, not having noticed me sitting there in the shadows. "Oh, Danny, you startled me. It was good. Promising." I could have confronted her then. Part of me wanted to explode, to demand answers, to tear down the facade we were living behind. But some deeper, colder part of me took over, a part I hadn't known existed until that moment. "Did you bring back any dessert? Those fancy events always have amazing desserts," I said casually. Relief visibly washed over her face. "No, sorry. Next time I will." I nodded and went upstairs to bed, leaving her standing confused in the living room. As I lay awake that night, listening to her shower running far longer than usual, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. First, I needed to understand just how deep this betrayal went, and then I would make sure the consequences matched the crime. Over the next few weeks, I became someone I barely recognized: methodical, calculating, patient. I started building what lawyers might call a case: Elise's schedule, her excuses, the timeline of when things had changed between us. I went through our shared cloud account and found photos she hadn't properly deleted. Her and Julian at an art exhibit in New York when she'd told me she was visiting her sister in Philadelphia. Restaurant receipts for 2 on nights she'd claimed to be working late. The most damning evidence came from our joint credit card statement. A hotel charge from 3 months ago, our anniversary weekend, when she'd told me she needed to fly to Chicago for an emergency gallery situation. I'd spent that night alone with takeout and a documentary, believing my wife was handling a professional crisis, when in reality, she was in a boutique hotel 20 minutes from our home. Each discovery was like a fresh cut, but I compartmentalized the pain. I had a plan forming, and it required clarity. Through mutual friends and some social media research, I learned more about Julian Parker. 45 years old, 12 years older than Elise, and 7 years older than me. Divorced twice. Known in the art world as both brilliant and ruthless. He had a pattern, it seemed, of relationships with women who worked under him. Elise wasn't the first, and she likely wouldn't be the last. The question that haunted me most during those weeks wasn't about the physical affair, painful as that was to think about. It was whether Elise had fallen in love with him. Whether 8 years of marriage had been so easily overshadowed by a few months of excitement with someone new. Whether I had ever really known her at all. My moment of clarity came when my parents called to remind us about their upcoming 40th anniversary dinner. Every year, they hosted a formal dinner for immediate family to celebrate another year of their impressive marriage. The irony wasn't lost on me. "We can't wait to see you both," my mother said cheerfully over the phone. "Your father's grilling his famous steaks, and I'm making that chocolate cake Elise loves." After I hung up, I used a text: "Mom and Dad's anniversary dinner is next Saturday. Don't forget." Her reply came quickly: "Oh no, I might have to miss it." Julian scheduled an important client meeting that evening, and there it was, my opening. I called her immediately. "Hey," I said when she answered, keeping my voice carefully neutral. "About the dinner. I know things have been hectic at work, but this is really important to my parents. 40 years, Elise. I don't want to go alone." There was a pause. "I understand, but this client—" "What if we compromise?" I interrupted. "What if you bring Julian along? He could meet my family, and you could still discuss whatever gallery business you need to handle." I held my breath, waiting. "You want me to bring Julian to your parents' anniversary dinner?" she asked, confusion evident in her voice. "Why not?" I replied smoothly. "You're always talking about him. My family should meet the man who's had such an impact on your career, unless there's some reason that would make you uncomfortable. The challenge in my tone was subtle but present. After a moment of silence, she agreed. Great, I said. I'll let Mom know we'll be 3. As I hung up, I felt a cold satisfaction settle over me. The first part of my plan was in motion. If Elise wanted to bring her affair into our family events, I would make sure everyone saw exactly what was happening, including Julian himself. The week leading up to the dinner, I was meticulous in my preparations. I called my sister Caroline, the only person I'd confided in about Elise's affair, and filled her in on the plan. Are you sure about this, Danny? She asked, concern evident in her voice. Public humiliation isn't really your style. I'm not going to make a scene, I assured her. I just want the truth visible to everyone. No more hiding. No more pretending. Caroline had always been my fiercest defender, from playground bullies to college heartbreaks. I've got your back, she said finally. Just tell me my role. The day of the dinner arrived. My parents' house looked beautiful. The dining table extended to seat 8 of us. My parents, my sister and her husband, me, Elise, Julian, and my parents' oldest friends, the Scotts, who were practically family. I arrived early to help set up and to center myself for what was to come. When my mother asked about Elise bringing her boss, I simply said she had work commitments but didn't want to miss the celebration. That's dedication, my father commented approvingly. I've always admired Elise's work ethic. If only he knew the kind of work she'd been putting in. At precisely 6:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I could see Elise and Julian standing close together on the porch, his hand resting familiarly on the small of her back. They jumped apart slightly when I opened the door. Welcome, I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Mom and Dad can't wait to meet you, Julian. Julian extended his hand, all confident charm and expensive cologne. Daniel, good to finally meet you. Elise speaks highly of you. I'm sure she does, I thought bitterly, but shook his hand firmly. Likewise, she's certainly mentioned you quite a bit lately. As I led them inside, I caught Elise's warning glance. She was nervous, and that told me everything I needed to know about how conscious her betrayal had been. This wasn't a case of fallen boundaries or blurred lines. She knew exactly what she was doing. Dinner started pleasantly enough. My father grilled the steaks to perfection, and my mother's side dishes earned their usual praise. Wine flowed freely, and conversation remained light. Family stories, gentle ribbing between my parents about who forgot their first date location, the Scotts' upcoming travel plans. Julian played his part perfectly. The charming, accomplished gallery director, complimenting my mother's home decor with an expert's appreciation, discussing baseball with my father. If I hadn't known he was sleeping with my wife, I might almost have liked him. Almost. Elise, meanwhile, was visibly uncomfortable, drinking more than usual and laughing too loudly at everyone's jokes. Her eyes kept darting between Julian and me, as if waiting for the bomb to drop. She needn't have worried. I wasn't planning anything as crude as a dramatic accusation over the dinner table. My revenge would be far more subtle and far more complete. As my father brought out after-dinner drinks, I casually mentioned, did Elise tell you that she and Julian went to New York last month for that Miyazaki retrospective? She was so excited about it. Elise froze with her glass halfway to her lips. New York? My mother asked. I thought you were in Philadelphia visiting your sister that weekend, dear. Julian's eyebrows rose slightly, but his face remained composed. Professional liar, I thought. Oh, it was a quick side trip, Elise said, her voice tight. Just a day. How nice that your boss could accompany you, my sister Caroline commented innocently. Most bosses I know don't travel with their employees for one-day trips. Julian cleared his throat. The art world is different. We're a close team. Very close, it seems, I agreed, meeting his eyes directly. The tension around the table was building, but still subtle enough that only those looking for it would notice. My parents, bless them, seemed oblivious, caught up in the joy of their anniversary celebration. After dinner, as we moved to the living room for coffee and dessert, I put the next phase of my plan into action. Mom, I brought you something special for your anniversary, I said, handing her a wrapped package. I think everyone will enjoy seeing this. My mother unwrapped it excitedly to reveal a leather-bound photo album. Oh, how lovely! It's a family history album, I explained. I've been working on it for weeks. Photos from your wedding, major family events, special moments, all the way up to present day. As my mother began turning the pages, everyone gathered around, cooing over old photos and laughing at outdated hairstyles. Julian stood slightly apart, understandably not invested in my family's visual history. Elise, however, had grown very still beside him. She knew me well enough to sense that something was coming. The album moved chronologically, from my parents' wedding day through the births of their children, family vacations, graduations, and eventually to my wedding with Elise. There were several beautiful pages dedicated to our courtship and marriage, showing us young and in love, building our life together. And then came the section labeled Recent Family Events. The first few photos were innocent enough. Last Christmas, my father's retirement party. But then came a page titled The Truth Behind the Facade. My mother turned the page and gasped. There, meticulously arranged, were printouts of text messages between Elise and Julian that I'd recovered from our phone bill records. Hotel receipts. A photo taken by a friend of a mutual acquaintance showing Elise and Julian kissing at a restaurant 2 towns over. The damning evidence laid out in black and white. "Daniel," my mother whispered, looking up at me with shocked eyes. "What is this?" The room had gone completely silent. Julian's composed facade had finally cracked, his face pale. Elise looked like she might faint. "That," I said calmly, "is the real reason Julian is joining us tonight. He and Elise have been conducting an affair for the past 6 months, right under my nose, even on our anniversary." What followed was exactly the kind of scene I had told Caroline I wasn't planning to create. My mother burst into tears. My father, always protective of his children, stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. The Scotts looked mortified to be witnessing such a private implosion. "Is this true?" my father demanded, looking not at Elise, but at Julian. To his credit, and I use that term loosely, Julian didn't deny it. "This is hardly the appropriate venue for this discussion," he said stiffly. "You made it the appropriate venue when you entered my parents' home on their 40th wedding anniversary, standing beside my wife as if you weren't sleeping with her behind my back," I replied, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Elise had started crying silently. "Daniel, please, not like this." "How then?" I asked her. "In private, where you can continue to lie? Where you can make me question my own sanity? No, thank you." My sister had moved to stand beside me, her hand on my shoulder in silent support. Her husband, always conflict-averse, was studying his shoes as if they held the secrets of the universe. "I think," my father said with forced calm, "that Julian should leave now." Julian looked at Elise, clearly expecting her to leave with him. When she didn't move immediately, something shifted in his expression. "Elise?" She stood frozen between worlds, the marriage she had betrayed and the affair that was now exposed in the most humiliating way possible. "You should go," she finally told him, not meeting his eyes. "I need to talk to Daniel." Julian's face hardened. "I see. When things get difficult, you choose the safe option." "The safe option?" I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "You think staying to face what she's done is the safe option? That's rich." Mrs. Scott, always the peacekeeper, stood up. "Martin and I should be going as well. Barbara, Robert, thank you for a lovely dinner. We'll call you tomorrow." My parents barely registered their departure, still stunned by the revelation that had shattered their anniversary celebration. After Julian left, escorted firmly to the door by my father, the house fell into an uncomfortable silence, broken only by my mother's occasional sniffles. "I'm so sorry," Elise finally said, looking around at my family. "You all deserved better than this." "Yes," my mother agreed quietly. "We did, especially Daniel." Caroline and her husband left soon after, my sister hugging me fiercely before she went. My parents, despite my protests, insisted on leaving us alone in their house to talk. "This is your childhood home," my mother said, gathering her purse. "Maybe it will remind both of you of what matters." They would stay at a hotel for the night, she said, and we could lock up when we left. And then it was just Elise and me, sitting in my parents' living room, the remnants of a celebration turned disaster surrounding us. "How long have you known?" she asked finally. "Long enough," I replied. "Why, Elise? Were you unhappy? Was I not enough?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "It wasn't about you being enough or not enough. It just happened. Julian was exciting and different and made me feel valued in a way I hadn't in a long time. And I didn't make you feel valued? The pain in my voice was unmistakable now. You did in the beginning, but then it became routine. You were always working, always distracted with your projects. So were you, I pointed out. We both have demanding careers. That's part of what I thought made us work. We understood each other's ambition. She looked away. Julian pursued me, made me feel special, desired. And that was worth throwing away 8 years of marriage? Worth lying to my face day after day? She had no answer for that. Did you love him? I asked, the question that had been haunting me for weeks. Her hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I thought I might, she admitted finally. But seeing him tonight, how quickly he was ready to let me handle this mess alone. I don't know anymore. Well, I said, standing up, you have plenty of time to figure it out. I've already moved my essential belongings to a new apartment. The divorce papers will be delivered to the house tomorrow. The gallery's address is listed as an alternate delivery location, just in case. Her head snapped up. Divorce papers? Already? Daniel, we haven't even talked about. What's there to talk about? I asked warily. You had an affair. You lied to me repeatedly. You brought your lover to my parents' anniversary dinner. Some bridges can't be rebuilt once they're burned, Elise. The divorce was finalized last week. Relatively amicable, as these things go. We sold the house and split the proceeds, divided the furniture and mementos of our life together. Elise kept most of the art, fitting, given her profession, while I took the books and kitchen equipment. Lawyers handled most of the details, sparing us too many painful face-to-face meetings. I heard through mutual friends that she was fired from the gallery. Not for the affair itself. The art world is notoriously lenient about such matters, but because Julian had apparently moved on to someone new within weeks of our dinner disaster. An intern, barely out of college. When Elise confronted him, the resulting scene was dramatic enough that the gallery owners decided both of them were more trouble than they were worth. As for me, I've thrown myself into my work. Landed a major commission designing a community arts center. Ironic, given the circumstances. I've started therapy, trying to untangle the knot of anger and betrayal that still sits in my chest. Started running again, something I'd given up years ago when work got too demanding. My family has been my rock. Sunday dinners at my parents' house are a standing engagement now, though we never discuss what happened that night. Caroline calls me almost daily, making sure I'm eating and sleeping and not becoming a complete hermit. Yesterday, I ran into Elise at a coffee shop downtown. It was bound to happen eventually. Boston isn't that big a city when you move in the same circles. She looked different, thinner, more subdued. The confident sparkle I had fallen in love with years ago was dimmed. Daniel, she said, clearly as surprised to see me as I was to see her. You look well. Thanks, I replied awkwardly. You too. We stood in uncomfortable silence until the barista called my name for my order. I'm sorry, she said suddenly as I turned to leave. Not just for the affair, but for how it all played out, for not being brave enough to tell you I was unhappy before things went so wrong. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. The woman I had planned to grow old with, the woman whose betrayal had nearly broken me. I'm sorry, too, I said finally. Sorry that our love wasn't strong enough to survive honesty. I walked out of the coffee shop feeling lighter somehow. The pain wasn't gone. I suspect it never will be completely. But something had shifted. Perhaps it was seeing her vulnerability, or perhaps it was finally saying aloud what I had been thinking for months. Some people might consider my actions at that dinner cruel or excessive. Public humiliation as revenge for private betrayal. Maybe they're right. But in that moment, after weeks of being lied to, gaslit, made to feel crazy for my suspicions, I needed the truth to be undeniable. I needed witnesses to confirm that I wasn't imagining things. I needed Elise and Julian to feel a fraction of the shame and embarrassment I had been feeling. Did it help? I'm still not sure. Revenge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But sometimes the truth needs to be dragged into the light, no matter how ugly or painful it might be. If I could go back, would I do it differently? Perhaps. Probably. But we don't get do-overs in life. We only get to move forward, carrying our scars and hoping they eventually become the kind of wisdom that prevents new wounds. Tonight, I'll have dinner alone in my new apartment. I'll work on designs for the art center until late. I'll call my sister and assure her I'm fine. And I'll mean it, more or less. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and try again. One day at a time, one step forward, one breath after another. Because that's all any of us can do after betrayal. Keep breathing, keep moving, keep hoping that someday the pain will become just another chapter in our story rather than the defining moment of our lives. And maybe someday it will.